Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited because today we are doing all of the ways with embossing folders. We are doing so many different ways. I'm going to show you some finished cards for lots of them, and we really just want to crack into some amazing ways that you should definitely know how to use embossing folders. So there are so many embossing folders out there. Of course, there are different depths, different styles. I'm going for an all-over pattern today just to give you a bit of a overall look at it. So I'm going to be using this one from Crafter's Companion. This is the Geometric Diamonds. A really versatile all-over pattern. Now, a couple of things with embossing folders. In an embossing folder, almost every single one, there is going to be a raised side and a recessed side. So one that sort of, you can feel the bumps and the things poke up a little bit, point upwards. And then on the other side, it's going to be sort of debossed and recessed into the plastic. So let's go through with this. I am going to pop this inside a piece of cardstock inside my embossing folder. For embossing folders, I use my die cutting machine. I have a Big Shot die cutting machine, and I use a squishy pad, like a squishy embossing pad to go through. I know that you can get different thicknesses of these. You also really just have to figure it out with your machine, because embossing folders come in all different thicknesses. There's 2D ones, there is 3D ones. All the different companies seem to have different thicknesses as well. Sometimes you'll need extra shims, sometimes you'll need to take shims away. It's a little bit of a see what works for your different machines. But this is generally what you get. Now, of course, you're going to get two different versions depending on which side you look at. So two different sort of patterns. Here's the thing. It's really, really important when you are using your embossing folders to try out both sides, because there are so many techniques that are going to work with both sides, and they're going to give really different results. So for my ink blending today, I'm actually going to use a sponge blending ink blender, and this is just a roller, Cheap and Cheerful, that I get from the Cheap and Cheerful shop. These are fantastic for smooth, easy ink blending. Highly, highly recommend if you struggle with ink blending. These are going to give you soft ink blended edges, really easy to build up like a beautiful ombre. I'm going to use a little bit of dye ink. So you can see I've gone over one side of the embossing folder here. This has taken me this is in real time. So, less than 60 seconds to pretty much cover an entire card front really beautifully and evenly. And of course, even just running that ink over top of here, you're going to get a beautiful pattern. I do just need to catch that other side there where I was holding on to it for a minute. And then we have a beautiful, nice, evenly inked piece. So this is obviously one side of the embossing folder, and then when you turn it over, you're going to get a really different version. So do have a good play around. There are techniques out there that are built for particularly using one side or the other, usually the raised or the recessed version, and there are some really, really cool ones. I have lots of them on my channel as well. You can just look up the playlist with embossing folders. There will be lots there, but here is going to be the other side. So I've flicked it over just so that you can get a really good look at both sides here, and again, a really different version because it sort of hits the bits that are highlighted, that are a little more raised, and so we get two different versions. So have a play around, ink them both up, see where the ink catches, see what different results you're going to get just from exactly the same embossing folder. Okay, let's get into the proper techniques now. First of all, I'm going to stick with the ink blending. Now, I'm going to stick with this embossing folder pretty much the whole way through, just so that we have really equal comparisons. And then in between, I will show you some finished versions of cards as well. So, as I said, with this ink roller, you can get a beautiful, easy ink blend on the way up. So I'm just going to use some Gina dye ink, and again, I'm going to do like an ombre. So it's going to be the pink that fades into the white. This is my favorite quick, easy method for ink blending. If you struggle, I highly recommend getting these sponge rollers, and you can build up that color to be really dark down the bottom. So this is the first one. Look at that beautiful ombre, and this took me literally 30 seconds to a minute probably to get this beautiful look. And then there are some other ways that we can go about this. So if you are to color up your entire sheet first, I'm going to come in with a different color. This one is Wild Dandelion from Gina. today. And before I have even embossed this, so I'm not even going to run this through with the embossing folder yet. This is just a regular flat piece of cardstock. With the Gina K inks, they tend to go on... they go on beautifully, but if you notice that they're a little bit splotchy or a little bit uneven, this is one of those dye inks where they say they really do even out, and 100% they do even out beautifully as they dry. You can see this piece here doesn't look, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look super even. I can definitely see some bits and pieces. I am going to dry this, even though I would recommend giving it, 5 or so minutes, because there's quite a lot of ink on here. I did with it, run it through with a little bit of a heat gun just to dry it, because I am going to do another layer. I also don't want to get ink all over the inside of my embossing folder at the moment. Now, all of the techniques I'm doing today are with the embossed pieces of cardstock. This is not necessarily with the actual embossing folder, which is a whole nother category, because there are, as I said, so many techniques that you can actually use the embossing folder for. Okay, now I have got another ink. This is Sweet Mango, which is basically just an orange dye ink, and I am going to ink up. I'm actually using the same foam blender. If I wanted to, I can wash these out. I just wash them under some water and clean them out. If I'm going to use a completely different color, or it's easy enough to have a few on hand, because as I said, they're pretty cheap and cheerful, but I'm going to build up the color from the bottom. Now at this point, I will admit, and I left this in because I think it's really good learning curve, that as I was inking this up, I feel like, yeah, my ink pad is just really dry. I've obviously been using this ink pad a lot, so let's re-ink it. My rule with re-inking is I keep going around and adding the re-inker until I see it stop sinking in, because usually when I go around, it sinks in instantly, and the moment it starts to take a little bit longer to sink in, I know that the ink pad is full enough for me anyway, because I don't really want it to be overly juicy either. I just want it to be nice and inky, and you can see immediately that I get much stronger results. And so again, I've gone with the kind of ombre look where it's a little bit heavier towards the bottom, and you can still see that yellow. And this is just a fun technique because you can mix and match. This looks stunning with like a light blue layer underneath, or start off with some light blue cardstock and then go over with a nice navy ink or something like that. Absolutely beautiful. Now, the next one, I also am going to start off with a piece of plain yellow cardstock. So I have used the wild dandelion color to create some yellow cardstock. By all means, you can start off with regular pre-colored normal cardstock. That will work too. Then for this one, I wanted to show you using some embossing powder with these embossing folders. Now, I will say, this is not a perfect technique. You don't go for perfection, and you'll also see that it's actually not as bad as what you originally think. So what I do is I take my sticky embossing ink, this one happens to be the VersaMark, and I gently roll it over the raised side of this. I'm going to take some gold embossing powder. This is the superfine gold from Ranger, and I give it a really good flick from the background, and that is going to get off much more of that loose embossing powder, but you can still see it's not absolutely perfect. Sometimes you can take a wee paintbrush to it if you want to, but honestly, when I take the heat gun to this and we are going to melt that embossing powder, it's actually not going to look quite as imperfect as what it looks now. So you can see as it melts, it's going to really just hit those raised edges, and I think this gives it that shine, and you can't actually see the imperfections as much. So I kept this technique in. I still really like it, and I think it's really fun, although you definitely need to experiment with different embossing folders and see what kind of results that you get. The key is a really light touch with your embossing ink pad. Don't go too heavy, but again, fun to experiment with. Okay, the next one, embossing folders go absolutely fabulous with metallic cardstocks. That might be foils, that might be metallics, it might be something that I'll show you in a second as well. I have some teal cardstock here, and this is very shiny and metallic, and I'm just going to cut off a piece big enough to run through my embossing folder. But this has to be one of my absolute top techniques, because what it does to metallic cardstock is just stunning. Absolutely one of my favorite techniques. The movement in this one single piece of cardstock is amazing to me. Definitely worth giving it a go. But what if you don't have your own? Well, we can always try and make it. So this one here is some Lunar paste. Now this is a gorgeous paste from Simon Hurley. This is my absolute favorite. Now this is actually not the gold color. This is, I think it's called Slippery When Wet. And there is a gold color in the line, but this is my favorite actual gold color. I often will use this for splatter, add a little bit of water and make it into a sort of splatter consistency with a paintbrush, and it makes beautiful gold shiny splatter, and of course it doesn't soak up any of the colour underneath, it stays true gold. But I'm going to go with a sort of ombre version here. Now I'm using a domed foam blender to apply this to my piece of cardstock, and as I said, going with a little bit of a fade out style for this one. Don't worry if your blending results for this one aren't absolutely perfect, because once we run this through our embossing folder, it's pretty much going to hide any blemishes or anything. You can see here, this is just absolutely beautiful, and we still get all of that movement that we had with the original store-bought metallic cardstock. Now, I want to show you something else. So we're going to do a similar technique. I'm going to use the same paste and pop it all over. Now sometimes if I want to get the paste on there, this does dry quite quick. So I will say you do want to make sure that you get it off your tools, make sure that you close up the jar after you use it, you get out the original amount. I put on quite a lot too much here, so I actually had to put quite a bit back in the jar. I think I was a little too excited about how much I had put down, so I put a little bit back in, and then I go in with a nice swirling motion. I actually quite like this look by itself. It looks sort of like brushed or polished gold or so, just like this as it dries, but because it's such a thin layer, it's going to dry very, very quick. If you need to, you can add a little heat gun to dry it even quicker. And then you can run this through your embossing folders. And of course, I think you can, aside from the fact that they're different colors, I think you can barely tell that this one is a cardstock that we have made, a metallic cardstock that we have made ourselves. Absolutely beautiful results. Now, if you don't do the swirling motion, of course, you can get it much smoother if you want to, but I think it absolutely adds to it. And once it is embossed, you can not even really see those strokes at all. But how stunning is that? The movement that is in there is just beautiful. This embossing folder is, you know, it's nothing amazing. It's a very generic pattern, but wow, I think it has a wow factor for also being really versatile. So that is definitely one of the reasons why this one is in my stash. So here are some of the beautiful embossing folder results that we have for today, but let's make some of these into cards. Now this is going to go quite quick just because I didn't want to focus on putting them into cards, more so all of the techniques, but I do want to show you how easy it is to put some of these together. Now I am truly going to pop through my scraps bin here and find some bits and pieces. We are going to put these together. We're going to use up some of the things that have been sitting on my desk, and I've got a few little die cuts. I've got some burlap ribbon here. I've got some labels that I could pop some sentiments on, stamp on some sentiments and things like that, but let's see how we go. Most of these have been cut down just a little bit to be a bit smaller than a card base. Usually for me that is about 5 inches by 3 3/4. So going through my scrap bin, I try and keep this tiny little scrap bin for all of my paper scraps, just because honestly, if I let it get out of control, it would really fast. And so I work really hard just to have this small little bin, and I have these sessions where I just work out of that and make sure that I'm using all of those things that I am die cutting and putting those extras aside. So I've got a little piece of lace fabric here. Actually, I'm putting a little bit of double-sided adhesive on the back, and these are the vintage labels. I think they're stitched vintage labels. I will try and link anything that I have used in the description box down below this video. But this truly is more of a use what you've got, try out some of these techniques, and if you do end up giving them a go, I would love to see your results, and you can post them over on my Facebook group, which is called Come Crafting with Natasha. We have an amazing supportive group over there. We are so lucky, and everybody loves to see what you have created. I can also see your works over there. You can tag me in them, and we can chat there as well. If you really like my style of card making, if you want to support me as a creator, and if you more importantly want more than what you get here on YouTube, I have my website, which is natashafootecreative.com, and I am super proud of building this website. There is so much work that has gone into it, but there are now so many extra videos over there. They're all exclusive to the website, and you will get to see the year-long series that I did last year, the A to Z of card making. I have an entire series, a year-long series that we are in the middle of right now, called the Year of Geometrics. There is also card making classes. There is also some room tour videos of my craft space. There is free downloadables. There is printables that you can download for free and print out, and they are full of sentiments sheets. I recently launched my cut and goes, which are printables that you can cut out and you just are ready to do card making with them. So many things over there for free, and if you would like to support me, so head on over to natashafootecreative.com. I would love to see you over there. Right, we are putting the second card together now. This is one of the motor scrap frames here. Absolutely one of those just good, solid, staple sets. It's actually a stacked die set with those little decorative pieces around the rectangles. I have a couple of little Tim Holtz birds here. These are made from washi tapes, I believe. They've been in my stash for a little bit. I think I made them here on YouTube a little while ago. We put together a whole big sheet and then did lots of die cutting out of it. And so I've got some little birdies and then a lace little flower that I thought I could pop in the background too. A little bit of foam tape, and again, you can still see all of that gorgeous embossing folder and ink blending in the background, which is not the focus, but I think you can definitely, it's very nice and bright and cheerful in the background. Add a little eye onto my birdie. I couldn't leave him without one, but super simple, using up lots of scraps. This one here, I'm going to use a little bit of ribbon that I had lying around. It's got sort of like ruffled edges, and it's a bit of an off-white, creamy sort of colour, I would say. This is the very first panel that we made in the very beginning. So basic, really, really basic, and yet really stunning as a background. So not too much work gone into this one. Really, it was just embossed and then inked up, and that was good to go. Then I'm going to add that piece of ribbon. I'm actually going to add a second piece of pink just because I felt like pink and pink. And then I also have some of those leafy die cuts. Now I have the Whirl bay leaves, I think, from Simon Says Stamp. I know that I have the Pink Fresh. There's a foliage one from there that I absolutely love as well. As I said, I will link these all down below, but this particular one here is from Simon Says Stamp and really versatile. This is a favorite at the moment. Now, as I mentioned just before, these are the printables from my website. So these are completely free. You can go on there. It's under free resources tab and print these out. Now, these are full size. I've talked about these before, and that I like to, I designed them all so that you could specifically fussy cut them out. The circles you can use with some circle dies or punches, and the rest you can really easily fussy cut out. I've talked about this in videos before. Now, what I like to do is reduce these down. So on the right is 100%, and on the left is, well, now it's on the right, but it was 70%. And then I also do them down to 50%, and I can print a couple per page. So that's how I suggest you change these up to suit your style. I do all of them because sometimes I'm just after a bigger sentiment. Sometimes I'm after something a little more delicate and finer detailed. And so you can just reduce them down. You do that on your printer. Really, really easy, and also makes them super versatile. And then for this one, I have cut out one of the little banners. There's lots of different sentiments in there. As I said, these are all completely free, so you can head over to natashafootecreative.com, and under the free resources tab, you'll find several bits and pieces there that I think you'll find rather handy. And then this is going to be the next card. We're going to add a few little sequins or some gems or some embellishments. These ones are gorgeous because these are flat, but they also don't have any holes in the middle as well. And my favorite tool, this is the scrapbook.com, I think it's called a pickup tool or something. Absolutely 100% well worth it. It is a everyday tool in my craft space. And then this is the next card done. I'm going to add a few little embellishments to all of these. I think it just helps add that little eye-catching detail, that little bit of shine sometimes. You can do it with like a glitter pen or a wink of Stella or some enamel dots or some, little glitter gems or something like that. Just something to catch your eye as you move the card about, I always find is really helpful. The one that was made with the background with Lunar paste, I don't need to add in any sparkles to that because the whole card, the whole background is very eye-catching to begin with. But anyhow, there are 3 cards that we have created today. I hope you have enjoyed this jumbo video of all of my favorite ways with embossed cardstock. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much for supporting me. I appreciate it a lot when there is so much choice out there, and all of the thumbs up and the subscriptions that I get. Thank you so very much, and I appreciate it. Just know that. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.